why? It's because my MacBook Pro, from which I do the normal show every week, had looks like it was giving birth to another little mini MacBook Pro. I had the occasion of going out of town and driving up to Durango, Colorado, where my son lives, over the weekend. A much deserved, in my opinion, vacation. I haven't done anything for like that, and I haven't been up to where my son lives for quite a while. But anyway, the altitude is up there is about 7,000 feet. Down in the town proper, it's about 6,500, I think, like that. But it brought to light an issue. You've heard Eric and I. By the way, Eric's not with us this weekend. You know what? Hold off on that. Let's hold off on that story. Welcome to anybody who's watching for the first time. I feel like everybody knows what the heck's going on. Tonight we're missing our good friend and fellow captain Eric Larson, but we've got our ace first officer and wingman and chief technical officer Dieter Stauning here with us. So. Hey, Dieter,
Ron.
good to see you. As if we hadn't seen each other too much already today. There. So anyway,
Yeah, you know what? That's one of the benefits of our age, and we're
yeah,
gonna be talking about that little bit later in the show. How we
yeah,
can use the technology to
yeah.
aid the things that we desire and want for us in our lives,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and I use this coaching all the time, and it's so much more personal and intimate than just talking on the phone. Although the phone works if that's all you can muster at the time. But anyway, the show is designed as anybody who's been here before to help anyone who has a fear of flying and or knows somebody who's afraid to fly, or if you just like to listen to us talk about airplanes and things like that. Tonight we got a poll question. I'll put out there. What has helped you the most to fly more comfortably? We get a lot of questions from people, what else can I do besides this? What else can I do besides that? So we'd like to put it out to the experts, you all out there who are actually out there in the trenches doing the flying. And we'd like to find out from some of you, if you wouldn't mind sharing with us in a post, what it is that helps you the most, whether it's been through Fearless Flight. We always like the feedback on something you learned here or had with us. But if it's whatever you use that helps you, we'd like to know that. So again, what has helped you the most to fly more comfortably? And I worded it that way on purpose because, as you well know, uh, I've maintained that overcoming fear of flying is a process, and most of you have experienced it that way. It's not, although I wouldn't eliminate the possibility of anybody having a breakthrough moment, and and one time you flew, the last time you flew, it was nerve-wracking, and the next time you're completely calm. But more likely, and more often has been my experience, it's a process, and you'll get over it. And the thing that gets you on the airplane the fastest is if you can just gain some confidence in one, that aviation is safe. So that brings up the one trigger that we talk about, the brain trigger, the cortex trigger. And then the other one is the one that's more emotional trigger. And that is, having confidence in yourself, that you will be airworthy, that you will be able to withstand any of the emotions that come up for you. So if you would, if you're joining us live now, or if you're watching the replay, please put a post in your on your Facebook page there. And I gotta hit the escape button, and there we go. What we're going to touch just a little bit again about how you can win a coaching day with me. You can win a free elite coaching program with me, Captain Ron. The sweepstakes is backed by popular demand for the current launch of our new book, How to Overcome Your Fear of Flying, Overcome Fear of Flying, and we're going to be launching the paperback version here shortly, and Dieter will have a little bit to say about that. If you haven't joined our Fearless Flight Birds of a Feather group, Facebook group, I really encourage you to do that. We're approaching 400 people right now, and we're getting a lot of support from people in there. Speaking of what helps you, what works for you, support and connection, emotional connection with other fearful flyers is certainly one of the prime ingredients that people report. And so if you haven't joined the Facebook Birds of a Feather group, please do that. We have a couple items, a couple of questions we'll talk about in the aviation news roundup, and then we'll talk about the Clear for Takeoff 201 LA version, October 26th, coming up. The registration is open, and we just opened the early bird pricing. The regular price is $397. Early bird pricing is $347. And let me go back to my slides and see where we're at. Coordinate this thing here. Did we want to talk a little bit about that first, Dieter?
Yeah, let's talk about the October 26th class. I just
Okay.
put up the slide.
Okay, great.
So yeah, we just opened up the early bird special, and it's still a great time to join the class, because if you want to take advantage of the bonus, the flight in the afternoon with Southwest Airlines, which, by the way, you need your own tickets, but we fly as a group in the afternoon, and right now the prices are still super affordable to get those flights. So we always encourage those of you that are interested to take that leap of faith, have that you know, extra step of courage. Even maybe you may not believe it, but the point is, so many people are at the class, and when they look up the flight on the day off or the day before, and it's just not economical. And so we say, if you were thinking about it, now is a good time.
Yeah, this is a time to nurture your optimism, because we've seen people come in and can't even imagine flying that day with us, and then be disappointed when we get done with the class. So we see them the other way too. People can't imagine flying and they have a ticket, but by the time we get ready and we go on the flight, there's an immense shift in attitude about that. So we'll be doing it again over in the little town of Pacoima, north of the Burbank Airport, and we have it's a great facility. It's actually a movie set where that they lease out to production companies for commercials and feature films. And we'll be in this mock-up right here, which is a mock-up of a generic wide-body airplane. And it's great. It's interactive, and there you see up there in the front, Captain Eric and I. Eric's going to be over there with us again, and we have just a great opportunity. The realism is incredible, and it's the best thing. It offers just the most in the way of creating the realism that it's very difficult to get in there. There's a class after we completed the flight in the evening there with a bunch of smiling faces. We had 29 people we had 51 people in the last class. We had 29 who had signed up to fly, and 27 of them went flying with us. And like I said, there were far fewer than that who thought that they would be making that trip later on that day. But it's just a great opportunity, and we hope you can come and make it with us.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the book launch. You want to talk about that a little bit, Dieter?
Yeah, I just want to put up that.
I was cheating. I went ahead on mine.
Okay, so yeah, we have, as of September 1st, we have launched our Kindle version of How to Overcome Fear Flying. We once again want to thank all of you who are watching, who contributed to the book becoming an international bestseller. And as of right now, if you go to Amazon, it's still #1 release in travel tips. And if you have bought the book, please, we absolutely encourage you to do that. Go and look at your favorite chapter. Like, look at what speaks to you right now. You know, go to the table of contents and just look what speaks to you. And then go to that section. And after, you know, just kind of like, if you can share your experience of it, it'll be really, really helpful to us, because, you know, in tonight's show, we actually want to invite you to contribute to us or with us to collaborate on what's the most helpful to people who are afraid of flying. I mean, we know how we can help, but we want to hear from you. That's more important than anything else, because we want to serve you, and we can do that even better if we know what products or what services you would enjoy or would think are helpful in your situation.
Yeah, and well put. And the book is designed with you in mind. It's designed not necessarily to read it cover to cover. In fact, we designed it so that you could go right to an area of interest and talk about your specific item that may trigger you. There's a chapter in there about triggers. What constitutes a trigger? How does it work? And we really encourage you to do that. And we made it in a size that would fit to travel with you, so that you could use it as a how-to guide. I like to think that we did in fact reach our goal of making it different than other fear flying books out there. We didn't want to spend a lot of time talking about the detail of things like air traffic control and all the things that frankly are interesting to me maybe as a pilot, but not so much to you. And yet at the same time, we wanted to give you enough information to give you a background in that, because we know that you have to deal with two specific types of triggers. One is the mechanical, and that relates to how airplanes fly, crashing, dying. Those are the kinds of people those are the kinds of thoughts that affect people with those triggers. And the other one, the emotional ones, which are more related to, what's going to happen to me, and what is it about this whole process that causes me to feel trapped in claustrophobia. We talk about claustrophobia specifically, and we talk about anticipatory anxiety. So we hope give us some feedback too. Certainly, if you got it, get a review. I wanted to just say a quick shout out to anybody out there who might be listening who thinks that they have to have an actual Kindle device to buy and read a Kindle book. All you have to have is a smart device, either a smartphone, or a smart tablet, and you can get the Kindle app right when you download the book, and then you can look at it. And I personally am a fan of electronic reading and audio reading. But the great thing about Kindle books is we have hot links in there, so you can go to other sites and get other information if you choose to read it.
All right, I have to come in here and say this just in. Carrie has joined us from Maui. So awesome. Oh my God, we're so proud of you. I hope you're having a great time. And Jim says he loves the book, and his triggers were based on an experience. Basically, the beliefs that he had about airplanes were unfounded. So he could with the help of the harmonizer really let that sink in onto the level that we need to get to. And that's the tricky thing about an anxiety disorder. We have to activate it enough so that we actually can input the right programming, if you will, the right data files, and so that we can learn to make new connections. And we call that becoming an ace, right? Because there are three things that we know contributes to becoming an ace. And do you want to go through them, or do we want to just move?
Well, I was when you talked about that, it reminded me that, just in the very start, the first chapter talks about the brain. The first part talks about the brain and the psychology of fear and fear of flying. And we if you're like me, you don't realize how much automatic thinking we do and how much we make up what we believe. And so chapter 1 goes into that in some detail, and chapter 2 backs it up with the biology and the process and how we create stories. So we have a belief, we just know that the way something works, even when we don't know. And you can imagine if you make something up about aviation, which Jim was touching on, if you have myths about that, which the book helps to destroy some of the myths out there. But if you have myths and you make up a story around it, you can scare the pants off yourself for no and have no basis in fact. So that is what the book's about. But the ACE thing that Dieter was alluding to is we talk about how to become an ace, and I'm a fighter pilot wannabe. That was my dream of flying, and in the flying world, to become an ace in a fighter airplane, you had to have 5 kills, and that signified a level of mastery. And so we thought we'd use that, adapt that to that. So our ACE stands for awareness. You in order to get rid of myths you have about flying, for example, you have to increase your awareness. You have to know more than what you do. Oprah used to have a saying, when you know better, you do better. And that's certainly true for fear of flying. And I've seen so many people over the years say, wow, I didn't know about that. And just listening to people talk about how aviation works is helpful to some of you, even those of you who don't think that's the part of the triggers that bothers you. The C of ACE stands for changes or choices. One of the problems I found in my own life is no matter how much you want to change your behavior and your beliefs, until you increase your awareness, you don't know that there are choices out there. And that's been a big part of my life. So first you have to increase your awareness, then you can become aware of choices. And once you do that, now you can actually change your experience. And that's where the E is. You need a new experience, and the only way you can do that is by increasing your awareness, becoming aware of choices where before you may not have realized there were choices, and then finally you change your experience through that process. So, okay, aviation news roundup. We had a couple of interesting questions tonight. Did we need to say any more about the sweepstakes, Dieter? I don't know. I may have cut you off there.
No, it's all right. I mean, we definitely still have the sweepstakes on until October 5th. And but what I really wanted to mention is that we are literally days away from releasing the paperback on Amazon.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, we just got the finished file tonight. So
and I gotta blurt in here. I won't tell you the whole gory details because they don't favor me, but the guy who talks with a non-Native American accent there, Dieter Staudinger, I just tell you how much I love this guy, because due to some disappointing performance on Captain Ron's part, Dieter ended up spending a lot of sleepless nights getting this up to Amazon, because if you promise you're going to launch on a certain date, they have no sense of humor. And so we were up against that. And as much as I wanted to tell Dieter, let it go, he said, and it's due to him getting that up and getting the Kindle version out that we are where we are at today. So again, thanks, Dieter. I really, really mean that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But really, to be honest with you, it's about you who are watching, commenting, asking questions, bringing your experiences to us so that we can actually develop ways to support you and become more effective in the process. And so one of the things I want to quickly mention, and we have no details yet, but next week we will have a link to our re-released Fear of Flying research study. It's a survey that we first released when 2004, right?
2004, yeah.
And so our goal is for this to be the world's largest research survey on the subject of fear of flying, because when we talk about fear of flying, there isn't a lot of really good information out there.
And we want your data. We want you to report. I had over 500.
Maybe people. The phones are already ringing, Ron.
I know, yeah. But we want you to let us know what your issues are, and in the process, you're going to get feedback on the survey. When we tabulate the results, you're going to see what people are out there. How do you measure up? Because one of the things that bothers people the most when they come to the classes, for sure, is to walk in the door and be aware by the number of people in there that they're not alone out there. But again, thanks to Dieter for getting that up and running. But
Yeah.
yeah,
So
look
we
for
will
that.
release it
Yeah.
officially
Yeah.
next week. So
And it's really because, I true, I became serendipitously interested in fear of flying when I was asked in 1987 to help a psychologist here in the Phoenix area start the program at the airport, which I ended up taking over. I became so interested in this and something called human factors in my job as an airline pilot, that I went on to get an advanced degree in counseling and in human resources. And those are the things that spurred me. But what really, really, really has helped me help you is by the people who have gone before you. I learned more about what works and what doesn't from the people that I've talked to, literally thousands over the last 32 years. And we want to continue that. And we've got some exciting things coming up. We've got a membership that we're talking about, and it'd be meaningless for me to talk about the technology, but we want to get to the point where we can do some things that we're just on the cusp of right now, so that you can have me in your ear when you go fly. The probably the most popular thing that people do, or certainly for us, is the Fearless Flight Kit, which is that very thing. It has some videos and some audios with it, but the foundation of it is the Fearless Flight Harmonizer, and that's what people use, and it works on both of those triggers that we talked about earlier. And our goal is to come out with more and more of those, so you can take me with you and have me in your ear as you fly. So
yeah,
look
and so
at that.
let's actually transition to that, because another question that we had for you who is watching, Jeremy, by the way, thanks so much. Jeremy said because he never had flown before attending the 101 class, he felt that for him, just desensitizing and becoming familiar with the aircraft, and not in a rushed way, as it often is in an airport. It's
Yeah.
hurry up and wait. And so it's it's definitely a good way. So if you are in the Phoenix area, or if you are in the LA area, where you can basically get familiar with not just the inside of the airplane, the mock-up, but then also with the boarding area, gate area, security, a jet bridge. So we actually have the opportunity to use all of this while we are teaching the class on October 26th there at Air Hollywood. So
Yeah, if you're anywhere near LA on October 26th and you have a fear of flying and you can work it into your schedule and your budget, you really need to come to this class. And I've touched on it before. We're going to have a guest there, a fellow that I've followed for years, who talks about the statistical probability of dying in an airplane crash. He's extremely interesting. And he himself is a formerly fearful flyer, and he's going to talk about his own story, and he's going to talk about how he came to accept the numbers, uh, even though he was one who would do the numbers. It still wasn't compelling for him. And so we're going to have a special guest there. So I hope you can make it, and on October 26th.
and I just want to say quickly hi to Elaine, and hey Elaine, and
Hey,
she
Elaine.
she says learning more about the technical aspects of flights, like that's something that she would enjoy um, learning more about. And then also, yes, and the LA class is awesome. I totally agree with you, Elaine. Like this will be my third Air Hollywood class, and I'm so excited to come all the way from Toronto, um, because it's just amazing to see lives change right before your eyes, and that's truly what it's all about,
It's
and
so real that I had a lady one time make me promise that we would not move the mock-up. In other words, get it to fly. And I said, we got some we'll set some real records if we do that, because it doesn't have wings and it's inside of a hangar.
yeah,
Or a warehouse. So that's going to be very difficult, but
yeah.
it's very, very real. And that
But
speaks.
we can take full advantage of what I'm gonna say the movie industry has to offer, right? So we can simulate an
Yep. Yep.
experience like nowhere else without being actually on an airplane, and that's pretty like that's pretty fascinating, even if you're not afraid of flying. And because I sit in there sometimes, in the back, and I get jolted too, because we have that intermittent turbulence that
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
it's unannounced, just like turbulence tends to be, and
And pretty
and
soon
every
the story that you make up is that you're on a real airplane.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's it's
It's an awesome
amazing.
resource. It really
Yeah.
is. Yeah.
Okay. So where to
Okay. Well,
next?
we
Do you
have
wanna?
had some questions.
Yeah.
And if you're not familiar, there's a site called Quora, and I contribute on that. And there's a couple of questions that I've written on there. And the first one is this one about automation. And automation came about halfway through my career. And when we started to put computers in the airplane on the flight deck, and it allowed us to do a lot of things. But the obvious goal of automation was to make the a lot of the routine tasks less what do I want to say, of a drain on a pilot's attention. And so this person says, with all the automation used to fly a plane today, are pilots trained properly to react in an emergency situation? Absolutely, you are. And the first thing, the first command you learn when you're flying a light airplane, every pilot learns to start out with, is in the event of any irregularity or emergency, first fly the airplane. So if you quit flying the airplane, nothing else you do is going to matter. So that's the first thing that we do. So sometimes with automation, and we use, I would say the average flight crew today has the airplane on a modern airliner on autopilot at least 95% of the time. We always have to make a manual takeoff. And then, but once we get 1,200 feet above the ground, which is the rule, then we can engage the autopilot. And now it's not like we're not flying it, but what we're doing is we're making inputs first to the autopilot. We can steer the flight controls via the autopilot. And then when we engage the computer, because there's two levels of automation, I can just do the autopilot, or which manipulates the flight controls, or I can manipulate it through the flight management computer, which then sends controls to the autopilot, which sends controls to the flight controls on the airplane. So there's levels of automation, and that's what you learn as a pilot. For me, I started without any automation at all. I flew the first airplanes I flew in the military didn't even have an autopilot, because when you're doing military tasks, whether it's delivering people and ammunition and supplies, or whether you're putting bombs on a target or something like that, most of the time all of the time you did that manually. And then as automation came into more levels of sophistication, and then we got into GPS, then we started integrating that in there. So the answer to the question is, are the pilots trained properly to react in an emergency situation? Absolutely. That is the first thing you do. The first determination you make is whether or not you want to continue in the automated phase with the automation hooked up. So we could
Okay,
talk.
Ron, I gotta interrupt you for
Okay,
something
go.
really cool. So I wanna make a shout out to Liz. Hi Liz. She writes, "I'm on a plane right now
Oh, cool.
above Illinois, and didn't even cry during takeoff this time." And yeah, absolutely
Oh,
100%.
that's great. That's cool.
And that's what I appreciate. What she's alluding to, she said, what helped me the most is practicing meditation, particularly fear of flying meditations. I also have used all sorts of prescription medication, which have helped prevent some panic episodes.
Sure.
But she also used techniques like tapping, which is really helpful,
Yep. Yep.
stimulating different nerves, and to start rewire the panic response. And she does think that it helped somewhat. Um,
Cool. I
so
agree. And also you made me, I almost forgot tonight. I want to say hi to Elena Krupp. Elena took the 201 class in LA, but she had not flown until this past week. And so she wanted to brush up. She did a coaching session. We talked about the issues that were bothering her, and she just went to Chicago's O'Hare Airport, spent a week or so back there with, I think, with family. I think there was a wedding involved, and she just sent me her email or her text yesterday or the day before, telling me that what a wonderful flight it was. So Elena, you're on notice. We want to talk with you. So look forward to coming on the show here in the near future and talk about that. So congratulations to both Liz and Elena for flying this past week. And I had several others, and I can't remember all of them. I mean, it's getting to where I can't go through a day without at least a half a dozen people telling me that they're flying in some way, shape, or other. So anyway, so thanks for that, and what works, and we'll move on to the next question.
The next question is good.
Okay, this one's cute. This was, and I know where this person's coming from. She wanted to know, why don't airport runways have a ramp at the end to help the plane get off the ground? And I'm imagining that she's thinking of something like a ski jump. Okay, and the reason, maybe an aircraft carrier would be more appropriate, but when you're talking about an airplane, all right, and if you had a ramp at the end that would kind of like launch you into the air, when you think about it, as you started to go up the hill, it would actually take away your energy that you were building, and so it would actually slow you down or stop your momentum a little bit. The idea is good, and maybe if you were in a glider and you were going down like a ski jump and did that and launched in there, maybe it would be appropriate. But for powered airplanes, we don't use ramps at the end, because we have our own momentum and we create our own ramp by simply flying off into the air. And again, just a quick review, the critical things about takeoff are: one, we need to know at some point in our profile during the takeoff roll that we would be going too fast to stop. So at that speed and below, if for any reason I, as the pilot, decide that I want to stop or abort the takeoff, I can simply pull the thrust back, and I can stop in the remaining runway. I'm guaranteed to stop in the remaining runway, and that's because I used a speed called V1, or our decision go, no-go speed. However, once I got past that speed, now the dilemma is, or now the problem is, how would I get stopped if something went wrong? And so for that reason, the other side of the go, no-go speed is where we are committed to fly. And so every airplane, any airplane that you can buy a commercial ticket on, that airplane has pre-computed before you get to the runway, based on its weight, the temperature and the pressure, and some of those things that go into how much thrust the engines produce. And we know that below that speed we can stop, and beyond that speed we can continue in the remaining runway and get safely airborne, even in the worst case scenario, which would be from a pilot's point of view, where we would lose the thrust from one engine. So those two things are really, really important, and for me, those are the things that give me the most confidence just right off the bat, and help simplify the whole problem for me. So we don't have airport runways at the end of the ramp, because it just wouldn't make sense.
All right, are you ready for this, Ron?
I am. However, you might think that you would want a runway if you were departing from Kathmandu. And this is when Dieter and I were talking before the show here tonight, I said, we got to put this picture up there, because when I look at this picture, even I get a little bit of sweaty palms there. Not because I know you can't do it, but just look at that. And in this airport, in this little village in Kathmandu, I think it's up around 9,000 or 10,000 feet. If it isn't the highest, it's one of the highest airports in the world. And right behind us here, behind the airplane, is another mountain that rises up there off it. So when you come into land, you approach the airport from the far end and land rolling out where this airplane is poised for takeoff. And so you land actually slightly uphill, and then when you take off, you take off slightly downhill. It is a one-way in and one way and the opposite way out there. So maybe that would be one that they need to actually build a ramp there at the end of. I don't know.
I think I would also take Andy's advice. Andy Wixom, hey Andy, she said her noise canceling headphones with her favorite tunes.
Yeah.
One
Yep.
of the I think I would want to play my favorite tunes getting airborne from that airport too.
Yeah. No
Because
kidding.
especially in the distance, when you look, there's a significant drop, it seems.
Oh my God!
So
If you can see it from the other end, I mean, it literally drops off thousands of feet there.
yeah,
So
so
there's no overrun to catch you there.
yeah.
And piggybacking on what Andy said, we have found over the years that one of the most effective aids is audio stimulation. Audio is one of the most primitive senses that we have. It's co-located in the area of the limbic system, and it seems to have a kind of a transitional effect. And particularly when you use something like the harmonizer, where you can saturate your conscious mind with noise canceling earphones, and then you can drown out that little voice in your head that wants to frighten you and keep you on guard all the time. So okay, those are the things we had formally to that. I think we did the question on what would you like to see, or did we put that up there yet?
Yeah, we did,
Oh,
but
you did.
I can definitely repeat the question. Basically, we're
Okay, I
asking.
know the Fearless Flight Kit updates. We had one more
Yeah,
question on the
yeah,
up.
exactly. I'll put it up while.
And so this pertains specifically to the Fearless Flight Kit. If you have the Fearless Flight Kit out there, put a note in the a comment, if you would,
Mhm.
post a comment there. We'd love to hear from you, uh, and how you use it. If you've had it, how long you've had it. Did it help? Did it not help? And what's favorite parts about it and favorite ways to use it. And when we're talking about additions and updates, Dieter and I have some very, very specific things. As you know, the audio portion of that, the Fearless Flight Harmonizer, uses bilateral stimulation, which is basically stereo sound, but what it does is it switches from hemisphere to hemisphere in your brain. And our goal is we're going to be coming out with an additional line of meditations that will use bilateral stimulation, and they'll be active, or so you can activate them when you're actually in the flight, and they'll have a little bit of cognitive learning to a whole
And
variety of things we got in mind.
yeah,
Uh,
and I do want to
basically,
acknowledge. I do want to acknowledge David Vicenti.
oh yeah,
I think you have the harmonizer, so you would be a great candidate for sharing what other tracks or what other things might have helped. So because I do want to mention your courage. He was supposed to fly, I think, from Orlando or to Orlando,
yeah, I think to Orlando, yeah.
and I think in the end didn't make it. But it's really, really important to kind of recognize that it is often through our failures that we can gain a lot of momentum. And the reason why I say that is because we're also teaching, not just in the class, but we're hoping maybe more online as well, how to take these experiences and really transform them, because we have a really good process. um, and I can just go back to the example at the last 201 class at Air Hollywood in March. um, a gentleman who just getting on the airplane, but getting on with a different set of guiding principles, was enough that day. And rather than a defeat, he walked off. He did not fly. But what was the coolest thing was that he actually came back to the airport and celebrated with everybody. And the reason why I mention that is because we don't know where you are on your journey. But the one thing we can say, and he's part of the Birds of a Feather Fearless Flight um,
Group.
Facebook group, and there's an awesome post about that experience. So if you're not a member of the group, make sure that you look up Fearless Flight Birds of a Feather Facebook group and apply to get in. And because that's the kind of realness that we want to promote. Nobody knows exactly where they are in relationship to getting some information. And that's one of the reasons we want to encourage everybody next week to um, join and do the survey and become part of that body of real information that can bring about change, in how airlines treat fearful flyers. That's one of the biggest things. The the foreword of the book is by Doug Parker, the CEO of American Airlines, and that's really a good signal going forward, how to accommodate and better serve fearful flyers, because everything that we know, which isn't much, which is exactly why we're doing the research study, indicates that as anxiety disorders go up in general, in North America, so does fear of flying, which is kind of,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
So
again, we don't have the information. We're asking that you help us gather it and become part of that research study.
and the thing that I think that I fail to mention as often as I should is, if you want to get over your fear of flying, you can. It works. It's amazingly simple. Certainly looking back for most of the people who have done that, exposure. We strongly advocate exposure therapy. The Fearless Flight Kit is an attempt to do that. The class in Burbank certainly is an attempt to do that. Coaching to some degree does that, and flying is what really is going to get you over it. So you need to fly, but we don't expect you to go out there and keep doing the same thing over and over. You need to learn how to do something else and find some of your own little tricks and techniques that work. So if you haven't taken advantage of a 15-minute free coaching session, please do that. That'll be in the show notes when we get done here. And again, if you're anywhere near the Pacoima and Burbank on October 26th in the LA area, and you have a fear of flying and it fits your budget and your time schedule, please come and join us. The more the merrier, and we're looking forward to again another really wonderful class. So, any last minute bits there, Dieter, that we need to?
Well, I do wanna just affirm that David wrote in the comments that, while he didn't make it, he made it to the gate. He learned from it, and that is really where I say, as a coach, as a therapist, as a counselor, that's where the gold really lies,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
um, we
And we
say,
encourage people in the class, if they feel, we want them, even if they don't think they're going to go, we encourage them to come and even board with us, and we coach everybody on when to get off and so you can feel in control in that. So yeah.
absolutely, and so um, and Andy said, "Wow, great job! I made it to the gate once and almost went back. I was a mess, but Captain Ron, a team was with me and just kept putting one foot in front of the other. And I remember that,
Yeah.
and I remember that courage, and I remember the
She was
effort
sitting
that.
right behind me. I remember that too. Yeah.
So yeah, that was an absolutely
Yeah.
wonderful thing, and we do wanna support you in any way we can. So tell us what you would love to see more of, in terms of either live, or videos,
Yep.
or classes, or webinars. Is it flying over water? Is it about turbulence? Is it about takeoff?
Yeah. Because
Is it
this
a,
show is for you. This
yeah.
is for you.
So
This is our chance, and we're hoping to move to a platform where we can have live callers during the show, and move into more of the podcast mode. So it really does support you all out there. So thanks. So thanks again for joining us tonight. Thanks, Dieter, for hanging in there. Thanks for getting the book done when it was looked like it was doomed. And thanks to all of you for watching. And this has been Fearless Flight Live for Tuesday, September 17th. Oh my gosh, it
it's
was just
amazing.
January a little while ago, I swear. We'll see you again next week. And happy landings for all
Yeah.
you fearful and not so fearful flyers.
All right. See you next week. Bye, everybody.
Bye bye.